Hello out there and welcome to my channel, Inside the Quirky Mind, and it's me, Tisha. So thank you for joining me, and today I'm going to talk about hygiene in the Middle Ages. Do you think that you could survive in the Middle Ages with the hygiene that was going around? You know, a lot of people say, oh, I wish I could live back in the Renaissance time, or when there were castles and kings and queens, but do you really know what you're asking? Because back in that day and time, hygiene was off the chain. And if you had any type of OCD today about being clean, guess what? I don't think you could survive. And here's why. So here are my 5 little tips about living in the Middle Ages when it comes to hygiene. In order to think about the Middle Ages, you have to think about water. The water supply during the Middle Ages was not good. It sucked. There wasn't any plumbing, there wasn't any running water, so mostly everybody would go to the same creek or river or the same body of water, and it would be used for multiple reasons. It could be used for your animals getting drinks of water, it could be used for humans getting drinks of water, and it could be used for bathing, and yes, for some people even going to the bathroom. So let's just say that you need a community to run off of clean water, and if that clean water is contaminated, guess what? Everyone's gonna get sick. So my number 5 tip is there wasn't any good water. In fact, water was so scarce of being riddled with disease that most people drunk wine. So you may be wondering, why does everybody drink wine in Europe? Well, you know what? That was pretty much a custom because the water was so filthy and dirty, and it was very hard to come by clean water, that most of the time people would drink their own concoction of wine or some type of alcoholic beverage because that was considered to be more clean than the water. Number 4, toilets. There were no toilets. So if you are someone who goes, I can't even go to the porta potties at a concert, then I don't think the Middle Ages were a time for you. Why? Because there were no toilets, there were no plumbing. So how did people go to the bathroom? Your choices were kind of limited. It's like 3 choices. Either you had an outhouse, which is like a little shack, a little bit of bench and a hole in the middle, and you went to the bathroom in that little outhouse. Or most commonly, people dug a hole near their house and they would kind of do their thing in that hole and then cover it up. Or they had something called a chamber pot. And a chamber pot, it just means that in the middle of the night, you woke up in your bed and there was a pot and you would go to the bathroom in that pot. And then at the end of the day, they would dump that out the window. And let me tell you something, be careful if you're walking under a window during the Middle Ages. Make sure you have your umbrella, because most of the time people just simply threw it out of the window and it landed on people. Yes, everyone's nastiness from the night before in that pot just came spewing down over your head, because again, no one really cared where they were getting rid of their waste. It was just kind of a free-for-all. Wherever it was is where it laid. So let's go down to number 3, hygiene as far as hair. It was not essential. They did not have soaps like we do have today. So one of the things that was running rampant was lice. Yes, lice. People were sharing hats. They slept on hay, which the animals would also use, and this hay was not being changed as much. So what people started to develop was lice. Yes, and how people tried to get rid of lice was shaving their heads, and some people even tried to wear wigs because wigs help to keep your hair contained. Or they would wear hats during eating time because they did not want any lice to go around. But we all know that heat attracts these bugs. So by people wearing wigs and hats to try to cover up their hair or even shaving, all they were doing was just creating more and more and more of a cesspool for more lice to develop. So yes, lice was running rapid. And who wants that? We all know that a teacher in school like freaks out if one kid gets lice. Can you imagine a whole village that had just lice going everywhere? So yeah, lice, no plumbing, no proper water. Ew. And number 2, bathing. Bathing wasn't really done. In fact, in order to take a bath, it was considered something a rich person would do, because a common peasant or a commoner, they did not have a bath. So basically what people would do is they would get a big old pot, fill it with water, and they would pat their face down, their armpits, and all their nether regions. But guess what? They just used hot water. They didn't use soap or anything to that nature. When it came to the body hygiene, a lot of times people would just put powders or perfumes or oil, and yes, sometimes people would use their own urine to clean themselves off. So imagine someone that just wiped their face with their own urine and all that, and then they put on powder and perfumes. Let me tell you, it still was going to stink, even with the perfumes, even with the oils, because soap was something that they just did not have. So they just used warm water, and that was basically about it. Clothing. Let's take a look at clothing here. They didn't have much clothing either. So all that with the hygiene and not changing their clothes, it was pretty much a stanky place in the Middle Ages. And finally, the thing about hygiene, because all this hygiene was not being kept up, because people were not taking baths and showers, and they were using the dirty, same water, disease. Yes, a lot of times during this time period, a lot of people, women and children, were dying because of diseases. They had so many fevers going on that they couldn't even remember which one it was, but the biggest one was the Black Plague. And if you have studied that time and period, the Black Plague was basically a cesspool of dirtiness, because people were not cleaning and bathing and drinking from the same water, not having plumbing. Anything to that nature created disease. And yes, the Black Plague formed, and it got really, really, really bad. But if you study your history, you find out around the 16th century is when Europe started to develop a plumbing and water system again, which helped to create better health. So to everyone who kind of romanticize about being in the Middle Ages and being in Paris, ooh la la, around that time, it was not ooh la la, it was, ooh, it stank. Why? Because hygiene was not a priority for people. In fact, a little tidbit here, some people actually believed that being dirty was something that was protecting you, because they believed that if you open your pores with water, that you were more acceptable to get diseases. So sometimes some people actually believed that bathing was something that could make you more sick. But we know now today that bathing is quite essential for your health. But in that time, people believed if you were covered in mud and dirt, that protect your pores so diseases wouldn't come in. So with all of that going around, that meant that time in the Middle Ages, when it came to hygiene, was not very good. So now I ask you this question: do you think you could survive in the Middle Ages with the type of hygiene and lack of plumbing and lack of baths that were going around? Let me tell you, if you have a hard time sitting next to somebody with body odor, imagine living in a whole town or village where body odor and lice and disease was running rapid. So, could you survive? I know my answer. It is I could not survive. Drop a message in the comments if you have any more fun tidbits about the Middle Ages. So everyone out there, be you, be brave, and you know what? It's okay to be a little bit weird sometimes. Bye out there.